Recording stopped.
No, no. Only on. Okay, Counselor Oliver has agreed to lead us in the pledge. Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very funny, Counselor Oliver. Please be aware that this meeting is both being audio and video recorded, and as usual, we have to say who's online. So we have online Counselors Danberg, Downs, Gentile, Greenberg, Grossman, Humphrey, Kelly, Krinsman, Noel, and Norton. And I don't know if anybody's, yeah, we have a few absent tonight, but the rest of us are here. Vice President Lipoff, would you do the Land Use Committee report?
Yes, Madam President. The report starts on page 443
for our Tuesday, June 6th meeting. Goes on to 444 because the first three are held. 194-23, Naama and Amir Yacobi. Request to further extend non-conforming FAR at 76 Drumlin Road, approved 7-0. Arto and Victoria Demovazian, 196-23. Request to expand a non-conforming detached garage at 231-233 Tremont Street, approved 7-0. Next one is held. And then we have our Tuesday, the 13th meeting. The first one is on second call. 200-23, Canton Circle LLC, request to allow second oversized principal sign on same wall as a secondary sign at 714, 724 Beacon Street, approved 6-0. 202-23, Linda Blacksmith, request to further increase non-conforming FAR in height at 25 Braymore Road, approved 6-0. 201-23, Devlin Scott, New City Church, request for an administrative site plan review to allow religious use, and second special permit to allow restaurant with more than 50 seats and associated parking waivers at 1173, 1177 Walnut Street, approved 6-0, and I assume 204-23 is on second call. I will move the report, and I have public hearings to assign.
Yep, please go ahead.
All these public hearings are for June 27th. 225-23, Edison Almeida, request to allow parking in the front setback and reduce stall depth at 437 Parker Street. 226-23, Frank Vendenbosch, request to allow 2 attached garages accommodating 4 vehicles with more than 700 square feet total and an oversized dormer at 70 Suffolk Road. 227-23, 107-109 Elliott Street LLC, request to allow 4-unit multifamily dwelling to extend a non-conforming front setback, dimensional waivers for parking, and a retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height at 107-109 Elliott Street. And the last one, 195-23 Clinton Street LLC, request to allow ground floor residential use to allow 3 stories and a 35.3-foot height, to alter and extend a non-conforming side setback, and to extend FAR at 20 Clinton Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Crossley for the Zoning and Planning Committee report.
Thank you, Madam President. The report begins on page 446 with item 174-23, which is Her Honor the Mayor appointing David Weinstein of 132 Cornell Street as a full member of the Newtonville Historic District Commission, term of office to expire March 20th, 2025. That was approved 6-0. Then we have a long list of reappointments, and they all were approved 7-0. Item 167-23, reappointment of John Martin to the Newtonville Historic District Commission, term of office to expire January 1, 2026. Also, Jim Gross, 168-23, reappointed to the Newtonville Historic District Community, same term. 169-23, reappointment of Michael Rossi to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term of office to expire April 30th, 2026. Also 170-23 to the Zoning Board of Appeals, reappointment of Jennifer Puzzi, a term of office to expire on April 19th, 2024. And reappointment of Stuart Snyder to the Zoning Board of Appeals, item 171-23, term of office to expire April 30th, 2026. Then we have 3 reappointments to the Newton Affordable Housing Trust. Item 172-23, reappointment of Tamarishi Gambiza, term of office to expire May 2nd, 2025. 173-23, reappointment of Ann Houston, term of office to expire May 2nd, 2026. And 187-23, reappointment of Peter Sargent for a term of office to expire May 2nd, 2025. Again, all were approved 7-0. Of course, we continue to hold our Village Center Overlay District item 38-22, and the concurrent discussion on the MBTA communities. And again, our public hearing opens next Monday, the 26th at 7 p.m. I'll just mention quickly, in addition, the Zoning and Planning Committee did conduct a public hearing on June 14th, 2023 on item 94-23. Many councilors asking for adoption of an ordinance requiring electrification for all new construction and substantial renovations. And no vote was taken. The public hearing was continued, but we did agree as a committee that the zoning amendment or the zoning ordinance as drafted should go to the Department of Energy Resources for their initial review. And we will be discussing it again this summer upon their review and to see if they approve the ordinance as written. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Councilor Krinsman for the Programs and Services Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. The report begins on page 448. Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, June 7th. First item 179-23, the appointment of Sean Bezet to the Dogs Off-Leash Advisory Committee was approved by the committee 6-0. Item 208-23, the appointment of Stephen Logowitz to the Community Education Commission was approved by Programs and Services 6-0. Item 210-23, the appointment of Harold W. Adams to the Community Education Commission was also approved by the committee 6-0. Item 216-23, this was a request for a salary increase for the city clerk / clerk of the council, was approved by Programs and Services by a vote of 6-0. Item 163-23, this was the appropriation of $250,000 for election equipment, was approved by the committee 6-0. Item 159-23, this was the item to appropriate funds for the athletic field CIP construction phase 3 project, was approved by the committee 7-0. Next two items were held, and I believe the last item is on second call. With that, I would move the report.
Thank you very much. Councilor Markowitz for Public Safety and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Report begins, I was just flipping ahead here, sorry. Report begins on bottom of page 450. We met on Wednesday, June 7th, and the first item was the semi-annual public auto inspections, which passed 6-0. Then the next item was a request for $300,000 to replace a fire engine emergency response unit. It's about a 30-year-old unit, and this is not actually carrying personnel. This carries equipment, and it was just due for replacement. So that was approved 7-0. We then had a discussion on EV battery fires, which was voted nan. Interestingly enough, I guess the batteries are as safe as anything else as long as they're UL approved. So just kind of interesting thing to know about EV batteries and the fire department's preparedness for that. And finally, we heard the Traffic Council, appeal of Traffic Council TC 523, and we denied the appeal 4-3. That's it. I'll move the report.
Thank you very much. Councilor Leary for Public Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. The report begins on 451. The Public Facilities Committee met very briefly on June 12th. The first item was 22223, and it was Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $280,000 from free cash to the Snow and Ice Vehicle Rental Contractors Fund in anticipation of remaining contractor invoices. And that was voted by Public Facilities 4-0, which is the number of people who joined us that evening on the committee. And then I do have one public hearing to assign.
Please go ahead.
And this is for Wednesday night. This is 23723, Eversource Energy petitioning for a grant of location to install approximately 154 feet of conduit on the property of number 323 Nevada Street in Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Grossman for the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. The report begins on page 451. The committee met on Monday, June 12th. The first item, 163-23, to appropriate $250,000 for election equipment, was approved 6-0. The next, 216-23, request for salary increase for the city clerk, clerk of the city council, was approved 7-0. The next, 191-23, to transfer $100,000 to snow and ice vehicle contractors, was approved 7-0. Item 222-23, to transfer $280,000 for snow and ice vehicle rental contractors, was approved 7-0. Item 190-23, to appropriate $30,000 for an IT risk assessment, was approved 7-0. Item 215-23, a request to accept $100,000 from a fiscal year 23 one-stop grant, was approved 7-0. Item 220-23, a request for authorization for $300,000 to replace a fire emergency response unit, was approved 7-0. Item 153-23, to transfer $200,000 for the Newton Free Library HVAC system, was approved as amended to $300,000, and that was 6-0. Item 165-23, to appropriate $750,000 for the Newton Free Library's HVAC system, was approved 6-0. Item 182-23, acceptance of grant funding for the Marty Sender Greenway Phase 2 restoration project, was approved 7-0. Item 183-23, acceptance of $75,000 from the Massachusetts state budget, and this is to fund construction of a new community garden at Spears Park, was approved 7-0. Item 185-23, acceptance of $400,000 from the Massachusetts state budget, and this is an earmark to assist the city in funding Gath Pool, was approved 7-0. Item 186-23, acceptance of a donation from the Friends of Coletti Magny Park, was approved as amended to $200,000 by a vote of 7-0. Item 159-23, appropriating funds for the athletic field CIP construction phase 3 project, was approved 7-0. Item 219-23, a request to increase the spending limits for 3 revolving accounts, was approved 7-0. Item 223-23, a transfer of $50 to purchasing full-time salaries, was approved 7-0. Item 213-23, an appropriation of $136,020 from the water fund undesignated fund balance, was approved 7-0. And item 214-23, to transfer any unexpended general fund municipal health insurance funds to the health insurance trust fund, was approved 7-0. And with that, I move the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver for the Real Property Reuse Committee.
There is no report this evening.
Thank you very much. And now we can move to first call, roll call. Hold on one second.
Sure. I just want a clarification. I think it might be on second call, but I'm not sure. On 203-23.
It's on second call.
Okay. But if you vote yay, you're accepting the denial?
Well, I think Councilor Lipoff will explain. I think there's a withdrawal request. So yes, call a roll. Yep.
Councillor Baker.
Aye.
Councillor Bowman. Councillor Crossley.
Aye.
Councillor Danberg.
Aye. Aye.
Councillor Downs.
Aye.
Councillor Gentile.
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg.
Aye.
Councillor Grossman.
Aye.
Councillor Humphrey.
Aye.
Councillor Kalis.
Aye.
Councillor Kelly.
Aye, with the exceptions of number 203-23 and 204-23, for which I vote no.
203 is on second call, I believe. Hold on. Is that the
Both
one?
of those are on second call.
Yeah, they're both on second call.
Both on second call.
Okay. So aye, aside from that, so aye.
Thank you. Councillor Krinsman.
Aye.
Councillor Laredo. Councillor Leary.
Aye.
Councillor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councillor Lucas.
Aye, with the exception of 147-23, for which I vote no.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye, with the exception of 147-23, which I also vote no.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Counselor Noel.
I apologize if I didn't see this. Is 204-23 on second call?
Which one?
204-23?
Yes, it's on second call.
Aye.
Counselor Norton.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
President Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries with 22 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, with the exception of item number 147-23, with 20 yeas, 2 nays, and 2 absent.
Don't we have 3 absent? Is Counselor Bowman here? And Downs? Downs is here?
I'm here.
Oh,
Counselor Bowman is not here.
I didn't realize you were here. Are you back, Counselor Downs?
Barely.
Well, welcome home.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we can move to the second call item, starting with Counselor Lipoff with 203-23.
Thank you. 203-23 is a request to amend the site plan associated with special permit 32-21 to allow a curb cut exceeding 20 feet in width at 63-75 Broadway. This was denied 5-1. We got a withdrawal from the petitioner yesterday, this morning, whenever it was. So I would like to ask the council to accept this withdrawal.
So that's a motion to
motion.
substitute withdrawal for denial.
Sure, okay, okay.
Any discussion on that? I guess we can call the roll then.
Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Bowman. Counselor Crosley.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile. He was there. Counselor Gentile. Okay. Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo. Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
No.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Counselor Noel.
Aye.
Counselor Norton.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
President Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries 20 yeas, 1 nay, 3 absent.
Thank you. Counselor Lipoff, you're up again.
I'm up again, 204-23. Mildred McMullen, trustee of Milmac Trust, requests to allow a drive-in business and associated parking waivers to allow a freestanding sign and to allow oversized directional signs at 940 Boylston Street. To give some background, the request is to allow a drive-in business and associated parking waivers to allow a freestanding sign and to allow oversized directional signs. This was previously heard in 2001 and withdrawn, 2022 withdrawn, but the petitioner did withdraw their application both times. The department believes, the planning department believed that the proposed exceptions to the sign ordinance should be permitted and are appropriate. 14 stalls would be eliminated, but the parking would still meet the zoning requirements. Changes since the last time that the petitioner was before the committee: the entrance being curved, additional landscaping, a 5-foot pedestrian crosswalk in the rear of the property and a widened pedestrian crosswalk at the front of the property from 5 feet to 8 feet. Their peer reviewer, Beta, looked at the traffic report and the crosswalk in the rear. Beta expressed concerns over the potential queue spillover on Route 9, and with the rear crosswalk not being the best location for driver visibility and not being wide enough to be accessible. The representative for the petitioner stated that at the front of the property there were little concrete bumps to define the property and sidewalk. They would have an employee in a vest from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. to direct traffic at the front of the store. The building will be remodeled, providing a facelift. They received support from the Newton Commission on Disabilities. The project would still have to go in front of Mass DOT for an access permit. Additionally, stormwater management will be added to the site. The employee that would direct traffic would motion drivers into the drive-through, shutting the lane down with a cone, directing them to park in the parking lot, or motioning them to the next coffee shop down the road. That's what is in front of us. We only had 6 people present, and the vote passed 3 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstention. And that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Humphrey, you put this on second call.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Chairman Lipoff for summarizing that discussion. I'm of the opinion that this would not have passed the land use recommendation had everyone been present, but I don't know, so I'm happy to have the full debate and discussion here. This is obviously in my ward. This is maybe the 3rd time even that this proposal in some form or another has come before us. Previously, the council was not interested in this. There have been some changes and some improvements, but fundamentally, I do not believe that this proposal still meets the special permit criteria of not being a nuisance or a serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and the site being able to handle the number of vehicles that would be trying to access it. Chairman Lipoff just described the envisioned permanent employee, some poor kid who's going to be out there every weekday morning. In many parts of the year, they will be operating basically in the dark because of how early they're going to be out there. And that, to me, does not seem like an appropriate permanent solution for Route 9 traffic. Now, I understand the site is not great as it exists now and that there's many problems, but this is introducing a whole new dimension to this site as well and doesn't seem to really be adjusting for that. I think that it's possible that there's some location, even on Route 9 somewhere, where a drive-through could work. I don't know. But looking at this specific site, we're talking about a location and challenging visibility relative to a major and complex intersection at Woodward, Elliott, and Route 9, where vehicles are accelerating very quickly from below the hill up over the top of the hill. And then suddenly there's people trying to turn into the drive-through there, according to this proposal. They also talked a lot in their various presentations about a Wellesley location of a Dunkin' with a drive-through. This is on the other side of Route 9 going the other direction. And my mother happened to drive by there just last week and saw that there was about a block worth of traffic backed up out of the drive-through in the breakdown lane, just sitting there. So this is the site that they were telling us was, their model site that showed how all of this was going to work out great. And I just think that this is an even worse location to do that. And if you imagine that kind of thing happening, especially at rush hour in the morning, this is just asking for all kinds of new hazards and problems at this site. So I also, have heard from maybe a couple people in the ward saying that they want this, but generally people have either not said anything or have been quite opposed to it. But we have to limit our analysis to the special permit criteria. And as I said, I don't think it meets those criteria in terms of hazards to vehicles and pedestrians because of this particular location on Route 9. So I'm encouraging my colleagues to vote against this proposal, but I'm open to hearing the debate, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a number of hands raised. Councillor Downs, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. I am going to respectfully disagree with my colleague on the desirability of doing something with this site. It is, as he stated, one of the least lovely sections of asphalt in Newton. And while I dislike drive-throughs for many reasons, if there is a place in Newton where a drive-through might be appropriate, it would be this one. Something has to happen here, and currently it is not very functional, not very profitable. It is a hazard to pedestrians and vehicles. Currently, it's currently used as a cut through from Ramsdale Street through to Route 9 and back by large trucks, some of which are parked nearby, many illegally. This proposal, while imperfect, would give us a number of improvements. And one of the criteria we use in special permits is to say, no proposal is perfect, but is it better than what is there now? And I would argue it is. It adds greenery and stormwater controls where currently there is none. It would add some pedestrian safety both to Route 9 and to those who traditionally use the pedestrian walk from the Upper Falls neighborhood to the store. They come from Ramsdale, even though there is no sidewalk there. It is a calmer street. It also, they did make some changes to add gathering space in the store itself, so it can continue its current function as a place where people from the neighborhood who want a less pricey cup of coffee can go. I also want to remind us all that this will not go through if MassDOT does not approve it. MassDOT will also do their analysis and look at whether this helps or hinders the proper functioning of the Elliott Woodward intersection, which I would argue is not very functional now, mostly as backup both morning and evening as you're going eastbound and westbound, but we're talking about the eastbound direction. But that is mostly before the light. This is actually, you can pretty much see it from the intersection. So while I'm not thrilled about a drive-through, I think this one meets some of our criteria, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Baker, you were next. Are you still here?
Yes. I guess I'm going to say that if I vote against this, I need to declare myself, and I'm listening to Councillor Humphrey. I'm concerned that any solution that requires a human intervention on the scale he's indicated is not one that strikes me as inherently stable. And historically, I think Newton has not approved drive-throughs in multiple sites, if I can recall. Maybe Councillor Lipoff Vice President Lipoff will correct my recollection. But so if I end up voting no on this, I'm going to associate myself with the comments of Councillor Humphrey.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kalis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am shocked that the Chair of Public Safety and that the Planning Department would back this. It is a disaster waiting to happen. This is adding more variables into the road in that location, which will cause a myriad of accidents. As Councillor Humphrey alluded to, he talked about 4 points of acceleration. There's actually 3 points of acceleration. There's actually 4. You have Elliott, Woodward, and Route 9. You also have coming right out of CVS with little time to react. This is, I used to, when I was driving to South as a high school student, we would stop there often, and wish there was a drive-through. But that was when I was in high school, and even then, I realized this would be a dumb idea. This is just totally against what we want to be doing here in our city. I also want to say that, not to mention the safety aspects from an environmental standpoint, we're working against what we've been pushing for. We don't want cars idling and sitting in line when we're trying to reach our climate goals. It just doesn't make any sense. So I would urge everybody to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, President Albright. I voted for this project in land use, and I'm going to encourage everyone to vote for it tonight. I got my notes on my iPad, so I'll be looking down. As people are concerned about cars entering and exiting the site if the drive-through is approved, right now, cars enter and exit the site as is. There are 24 parking stalls. I understand that this may not be the world's greatest intersection with Woodward and Elliott and Duncan's, but it works. Cars exit today, or they'll exit tomorrow morning. They will enter the site tomorrow morning. This just changes the way how they enter. There's still going to be 8 parking stalls. There's going to be a drive-through, which I believe can queue up to 12 cars, maybe more. In the petitioner's plans, they show 12 cars queuing, but potentially you could get 2 or 3 more cars after they pay for their food or coffee, and they are queuing to wait to go out onto Route 9. So maybe 14 cars can go into the drive-through area. So there is room for the cars. And if the 12 cars are, backed up at the end of the queue, or 14 cars are backed up at the end of the queue onto Route 9, I mean, I don't feel great about someone standing with a jacket or waving cars away or waving cars in. I'm not a fan of that. But cars can then still enter the parking lot where there will be parking. We also heard from Ginny Fairley. We all know Ginny Fairley. We all like her. We respect her. She was advocating for folks with disabilities and mobility issues. This will be helpful to them. Right now, there is only one drive-through operation open in Newton on California Street. It's a McDonald's. I drive past it every once in a while whenever I go up California Street. It seems to function just fine. The other thing I want to mention is that even though that this is a Dunkin's, it's a small business. This is a franchise. The manager or owner of this Dunkin's is sitting in our audience right now. He's a great guy. He just wants to make a living. This would help him and his small business. The industry has changed since COVID. We now have, it's changed, and he believes the drive-through would help his business. I also want to add that the building footprint and square footage would be decreased to allow for the drive-through. And lastly, I want to say is that I think Councilor Downs mentioned it. It still needs to be approved by Mass DOT. They will take a look at this if we approve the special permit. They're going to look at the plan to have a person waving in cars or waving away cars. I'm not a fan of that, but I don't believe it was written into the council order. Maybe the chair can correct me, but I don't think we put it in. It was not, yeah, okay, Councilor Markowitz just corrected me. It was not put into the council order, so we don't have any control over that. Mass DOT, however, may have a different stance. But again, if Mass DOT says no, the project doesn't go forward. I'll leave it at that. I urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Krinsman is next.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to align myself with Councilor Humphrey and Councilor Humphrey's mom. I think Councilor Humphrey summed it up very well. I have concerns. I am definitely willing to hear what other folks have to say, but I will say that at the moment, my evaluation of this project makes it difficult for me to conclude that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians by this proposal. And as others have alluded to, that is one of the criteria under which we judge our special permits. And so for that reason, at the moment, I will be voting no.
Thank you very much. Next is Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to quote something I always quote. Being a lifelong resident of Newton, I've driven by, and when I went to Newton South, I used to go up there also, like Councilor Kalis, I don't know, thousands of times I've driven by there and gone in there to this location. And, you know, over the years, way before I was on this council, people would say, why aren't there any drive-throughs in the city of Newton? And at the same time, they'd say, why can't you pump your own gas in the city of Newton at the time when you used to be able to do it everywhere else? And I said, I don't know. It must be some ordinance or some law or for whatever reason, and I wasn't on the council at the time, so I didn't know the real answer, and I wasn't up to looking at Friday packets in those days and calling City Hall, and you know, people think because you've lived here all your life, you're the expert on everything in the city. So I ran for city council so then I could access everything. But I am actually for drive-throughs. I didn't know that that location over in California Street had gotten a drive-through. I'm still wondering, do they really have a drive-through? Because the one on Needham Street doesn't. And I used to always say, why don't our fast food joints have drive-throughs? And I'm someone that owned a couple of diners in my life. But why is Newton different on this? I'm for drive-throughs. I think we should take a hard look at letting, especially new building, new construction, where they can do it right, have a drive-through. But as I said to somebody earlier today, this can't be the poster child for the way I feel about drive-throughs. It's a terrible location for a drive-through. I cannot see somebody out there directing traffic, and then if it gets full, sending someone down the street to another coffee donut shop with the same name. I understand that, but it just doesn't work that way. We have people cutting through. I cut through in my younger days. I used it for cut through. It's not the right location. And then you're cutting down to 8 parking spaces, so it's going to make more people go through the drive-through. You can't have cars backed up on Route 9 at that location. The BP gas station is beside it with one of their curb cuts right there at close to the property lines. You have the hill, which was already mentioned. You have that terrible intersection at Elliott Street. Just try and get out of that parking lot. If the light's not with you, forget it. So in this case, like I said, it's just not the poster child for more drive-throughs, and I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to invite Councilor Ryan to join me for my 99-cent coffee at the McDonald's on California Street, which is quite large, has a drive-through, but I go in with my own personal cup. And but it's 99 cents, cheapest coffee in Newton. People are calling about how this would be a serious nuisance and hazard. Well, that whole location is a serious nuisance and hazard, from the CVS all the way to the auto repair cars. I mean, it's really a terrible location. And personally, I'm not a fan of drive-throughs because I like to get out of my car and walk, and I think most people should. I spend too much time in our cars. But it seems to me to be just too car-centric. But I haven't been convinced that this is any worse than what's there now. In fact, those two very wide curb cuts, I understand they're used as a cut through now, that they will be prevented from doing that. They're going to do striping, pedestrian crosswalks, bollards, there'll be better lighting, landscaping, stormwater drainage, a gate to prevent the cut-throughs. The building will be remodeled. There'll be 8 parking spots for 8 seats. And I'm sure they recycle, too. They have a second bin for recycling. So the only thing I really have a problem with is some high school kid on a dark night in a vest directing traffic on Route 9. That sounds crazy to me. You should have a police officer, if this actually does get passed, because it has to go through access permit from MassDOT to ensure it doesn't block traffic on Route 9, correct? So there's a whole nother layer. We could go through this whole exercise and then MassDOT could just say no. But I think there should be a police officer there for the first 3 months that it's open to direct traffic, not a high school kid. And if that's the case, I would vote for it. I just think this place squeezed between 2 gas stations, bricks, it's just cement. It's what we don't want in Newton, but that's not the fault of this Dunkin' Donuts owner or wanting to put in a drive-through so that he can improve his business. So I'm going to vote with Councilor Lucas on this. Yes, I am. But I would like to propose an amendment that if it does get through MassDOT, that I would like to see 3 months of a police detail from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. and not a high school kid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think next is Councilor Markowitz.
Bravo, Councilor Leary. Bravo, actually, pardon me. So I was one of the 3 people that voted for this, so I want to explain why I voted for it. And I'll just say, I know my esteemed chair of land use, who I have the utmost respect and fun with in the committee, when he talked about the 3-2-1 vote, actually, so Councilor Downs is back from Japan. Welcome back, hope you're awake. She's on that committee, she would have voted for it. So now we're at 4-2-1, and Councilor Bowman, and I'm not talking out of school here, Councilor Bowman indicated while it was tough, she was leaning. She did abstain, though. She did abstain. Okay, all right, wait. I knew that was I know that was a bridge too far to go with that one, but I tried it anyway. So why did I vote for this? Okay, we heard this 3 times. This proposal has been worked, has been modified. Some of the cut-throughs, other things that were problematic with the site, they attempted to address. It is a tough site. The reason I voted for it, over and above, I said, we have, in a sense, a break here. If MassDOT doesn't think this is safe, they're going to kill it. And to Councilor Leary's point, and others, it's done at that point. You know, we rely on MassDOT for other things. I got to drag you all back to the carriageway, where I kind of died on the cross, and we all use MassDOT as an authority there. So I'd say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and let them decide this. There was also a traffic study done independently here, which also found, or 2 traffic studies, which found that there wasn't a particular problem here. Another thing that persuaded me was Ginny Fairley's testimony, which I thought was very powerful. She said, you know, for people with disabilities, this is actually a good thing. And that was expanded to include not just people with disabilities, but thinking about people with young kids. So you got 2 kids in car seats, now you got to go through all the rigmarole, getting them out, getting them in, getting them back in. You know, we've all been through that stuff at some point in our life, I think. And I was very persuaded by that argument. And, you know, again, considering that DOT is a break, and even though we don't consider these types of things in land use, we're not supposed to, I do have a bit of a feeling in my heart for the small business owner trying to make a go of it in what is a very difficult situation, you know? And I'll make my one flip comment on Route 9. When I'm on Route 9, I stay the heck out of the right lane. I get in the left lane, the center lane. If you're in the right lane, you're going in or you're going out of a place there, and it's never going to be good. And it's only probably going to get, more congested over time. But that's why I voted yes. I hope you'll join me on that. I think this has been, though, a very interesting, on both sides, a lot of good points made here. And I'm glad we're actually, this robust over something, because it actually is important. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. As most of you know, I have been following this on land use, and the previous two times I really kept an open mind as we voted to hold, trying to give the petitioner, who I agree with Councillor Lucas and others, is a really nice guy. And if it were our job to keep nice guy small businesses in operation, that would be a different criteria. He is a nice guy, and I feel bad about that. But ultimately, when Beta presented their report this time, looking into balancing the changes and quote unquote improvements that had been made, I agreed with all of their concerns. I think that public safety has to come first here for us, even though Mass DOT will take a whack at it. And I don't believe we need to write that into our council order, because I think that's what happens anyway, but the lawyers can correct me on that. We should make the call for what we think is right in Newton. And as Councillor Humphrey and then others have said, I think that the public good is not going to be served by this. The point is to bring more traffic into the site to give this Dunkin' Donuts more business so they can stay in place. So we're increasing traffic. It's not that it's staying the same and being improved by trees or whatever else. I think that the changes are insignificant given the problem that is being presented. And as everyone has said, this is a very troublesome site. Even if one were to like and approve of drive-throughs, as perhaps Councillor Ryan might, or Ginny Fairley does, this is not the right location for one of those. The backup onto Route 9 is undisputed. The fact that their answer has been pointed out, to put a human being in a reflective orange vest and a lighted baton tells me, as a site planner and landscape architect, that they're trying to force a solution onto a site that it doesn't really work on. So ultimately, I think that the improvements don't compensate for the effects that are going to be created here. I'm worried about that backup onto Route 9 and people then swerving out of that lane when the baton man tells them they can't come in. And the getting out onto Route 9, as was pointed out, is very difficult too. There are only 2 cars there, and you have to time those lights of those 3 different lights well enough to pull out to let that queue of 12 cars come through and make it easy. I just think that this is a serious hazard. It's not compensated by the changes. I'm very glad Bill's mother drove by the Wellesley one, because I've been wondering about that. And I think I too am sensitive to the point that Jeannie Fairley and others made about people with disabilities who can't get out of their cars or don't want to, or moms with kids. But I think our first effort here has to be not for convenience of some, but for safety of the public. And I'm this time still going to vote against it, as I did when it came to us the 3rd time a week or so ago. And I would like you all to listen to those words and really think about whether this is the right location for this type of business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noel.
Thank you. I want to align myself with Councillor Humphrey, Councillor Kelly. I have great respect for Ginny Farley. I've made much of my career in serving people with disabilities, but I think the safety concern of this site is much too significant to overlook. Just to address some of the comments that have been mentioned, Route 9 could not be more different than California Street. And, as a Ward 6 counselor and a Ward 6 resident, I often am coming out of Woodward on the light, making a left onto Route 9 to get into the CVS parking lot, and am doing a really uncomfortable dance with that slip lane of people gunning it to get out of the slip lane and me trying to drive in and make a right into CVS. So it's already a very an intersection or an area that has to be maneuvered carefully in terms of people making decisions. So for all those reasons, I'm going to be voting no on this.
Thank you. Councillor Danberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been against this in the past. I've watched its various iterations come through, both when I was not on the board and when I have been on the board. And I've always been against it in the past for the reasons that the people who are speaking against it have stated. I am going to be voting in favor this time. I would like to align myself with the comments of the people who have said that this is currently a very unattractive location. It's a hazard to both pedestrians and vehicles. The improvements will certainly make it better than it is now. They will be adding landscaping and sidewalk. And important for me is the fact that MassDOT will have a final say on this. MassDOT is not, we could say yes, and MassDOT could turn this down. And I, for one, am comfortable placing my eggs in the basket of the decision that would come down from MassDOT. I'm also persuaded by the letter of support from the Committee on Disabilities. People who have disabilities, especially mobility-related disabilities, have a great deal of trouble exiting their cars and getting into places where they can get coffee and a muffin or a donut in the morning. And it will make their lives, and as Councilor Markowitz alluded, parents who have little kids in toddlers and kids in baby seats to be able to do a drive-through. As far as the idling is concerned, idling is always a problem, but perhaps my esteemed councilor from Ward 8 has not seen the tsunami of electric vehicles that have arrived in Newton. Newton seems to have more electric vehicles than anywhere I have seen. And I just got rid of my 13-year-old gas-driven car and have an electric vehicle. So I think that in the future, we are going to see less and less of a problem with cars idling and creating pollution. So I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crossley.
Thank you, Madam President. I have met with the petitioner a couple of times. This is my ward also, along with Councilors Humphrey and Downs. No doubt, this is a very difficult site. I wish the petitioner had a different site to deal with. The size of this site is hugely constraining of what they're able to do. Clearly, though, they have twisted themselves into pretzels to provide and have provided a plan that is far better. Boy, I think I might be struggling with this one vote more than I have on much bigger issues that are before us, because I really hear the arguments on both sides of this. I am not against drive-throughs. I agree with my colleague from Ward 8 and Ward 1, et cetera, and the two from Ward 1, et cetera. There's a need here. I see it, and I wish that we could provide this kind of service for moms with lots of kids in the car and folks who have trouble getting in and out of the car. Newton has had sort of an unstated policy of saying no to drive-throughs. I don't see it as a climate issue. You know, there's far more idling on Route 9, you know, exponentially more than what this one entity would create. But I also see the dangers. There definitely needs to be a police detail. That's not written into the conditions. That's a flaw. If the committee has voted in favor of this without that condition, I can't support it. It can't be a high school kid, and it can't be based on a promise. We are able to condition such things. We've done it for marijuana establishments and other things where traffic is even considered maybe to be an issue. Just down the street, there's the marijuana establishment coming into this very difficult intersection, also next to a gas station that queues up traffic unbelievably on Elliott Street, the Negotians gas station, and causes a huge congestion issue, particularly during rush hours that travel beyond the egress of the adjacent property. And that's going to be a problem here at that gas station as well. There's, as I understand it, we need to count the queue from the place of ordering. There's about 6 vehicles. Then you're turning the corner. Then you might have 3 vehicles in the breakdown lane before you block the entrance of, or the egress from the gas station. So there needs to be traffic control. And I don't see it being 3 months. I see it being necessary for a longer period of time. I understood today that there's 2 Dunkin' Donuts in Wellesley, both on the east and west approaches, and that they both queue up, but they're bigger lots, and they have a real breakdown lane of some distance before any other property might be blocked. So I'm not telling you how I'm going to vote exactly, but I can't vote for this tonight if the council order doesn't have conditions in it that would require ongoing management of traffic. So, and I saw the Beta concerns, and I think it's a terrible location. But as Councilor Leary said, the location is what it is. Here's a business that exists. It's going to be cleaned up and made much safer, disconnected from Ramsdale, which is a huge issue over there. Makes everything really a mess, and you know, all those folks from Ramsdale Street steal your parking spaces. So I think I could go forward and approve this if the council order was repaired, but I can't vote for it tonight based on what's before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman.
Thank you. This has been so interesting. I also am not fundamentally opposed to drive-throughs. As one of those parents with lots of young kids in the car, there have been many moments that I've wished that a drive-through could magically appear and make my life easy in that moment, although I certainly recognize the drawbacks of them as well. And I'm very sensitive to the comments of Ginny Fairley and the Commission on Disability. But I have to say, Councillor Kelly, you convinced me. I found your arguments, and I know you amplified concerns that were raised by others of our colleagues as well. You know, just to convince me that I don't feel good that we're meeting our special permit criteria here with the problems of this site. And for that reason, I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Malachy.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess I would align myself most closely with Councillor Baker. I'm very undecided on this. I see pros and cons. If I do vote against it, it would be on the basis of the concern about the queuing. I am, the reason, obviously, pretty much everyone has stated very good reasons on both sides. You know, personally, I found, you know, without any disability, I found drive-throughs very convenient up on Route 38 in Tewksbury Lowell when I was, you know, working. It's, you know, I don't know if convenience is an overwhelming argument, but it is a factor. On the other hand, those were much less busier streets and had I never observed any queuing at those locations. I also was thinking of what Councillor Danberg brought up, that, well, idling is a problem now, if we were looking at this in the long term, we're expecting as low emissions requirements become more widespread, and the federal government and so forth, that I think we'll have higher preponderance of electric vehicles. And even now, compared to the backups on Route 9 and the volume, the incremental effect of idling behind McDonald's, or rather Dunkin', is not going to be adding that much. So I'm still listening. I wonder if anyone can address how confident we feel in Mass DOT's judgment on this, what type of factors they will consider. I would support Councilor Leary's motion, or a stronger motion to have the police detail at least for 3 months and perhaps longer, to alleviate the concern about some less experienced person having to take on that job. But we have had detail requirements for the cannabis stores, and that was something that we had to trust that would happen. So those are my thoughts. I'm still listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now several people have asked to speak again, and Councilor Kalis, I think you're next, and you have 1.5 minutes left.
Okay. Consistency in voting and in policies is critical, I think, for this council. We've been talking about climate change and making our city not as car-centric. And to not hear colleagues bring this point up really makes me question what's going on here. To say that electric vehicles are, overtaking or just becoming a lot more prevalent, yeah, there are some more electric vehicles, but the idling and the message that we're sending here about car centricity is opposite to everything that we're arguing. How can we then say to constituents, oh, we need solar panels, you shouldn't be using fossil fuels in your homes, if we're not consistent? I am not against drive-throughs, but because of climate change, I've become against them. And I think that in a situation like this, where you are going to have cars queuing, that is an important vote that we need to be taking. Regarding Ginny Fairley, I have a lot of respect for her and for what she does, but Dunkin' also has curbside delivery. And I know that was an argument that was made during the committee meetings, and I think just should be brought up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in time. Councilor Leary, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. My recommendation was, or my request was, to send this back to the committee. I think there needs more work on it, particularly around the safety of having a police presence there, which I'm not sure I would say forever, but it certainly would need to be considered. Otherwise, I don't think I can vote for it. So I'm making that motion to send it back to committee. And I appreciate Councilor Kalis's advocacy for this, and I understand where he's coming from, but this is a tiny drop in the bucket. I don't think it means we're all in favor of more car-centric. It's just, this is a particular thorny issue, and I think it's improving what's there now. There's still going to be cars, the same amount of cars probably. So it is thorny. I can understand why people would not want to vote for it, but in this particular case, I just think the costs outweigh the benefits. So there's my proposal to send it back to committee.
Okay, is there a second? Councilor Lucas?
I will second that.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Vice President Lipoff.
Just on that motion, I should hold my other comments.
Yes.
This petitioner came to us in 2021, saw the votes weren't there and withdrew, came back in 2022. We asked to solve the problem of the safety issue with queuing from the kiosk 6 cars before you get onto Route 9. They had no response. They had no solution. They come back a 3rd time, and their solution is to put a kid in a vest, making 3 decisions quickly. Come into the queue, go into a spot, or don't come in, go down, just stay on Route 9 with cars coming in. This is done. If you have to have a police officer at probably $75 an hour, I don't know how that is going to work for this small business, to make sure that this is safe, that's a major problem. When we do a police officer with the marijuana dispensaries, that was because it was a new territory. We all watched one dispensary that was open in Brookline where everybody in Boston was going. We all saw what happened with that. It wasn't necessary. That's the last time we had a police officer that we demanded. This, if you have to demand a police officer to make this work, I think you have your decision. This has been 3 years, 3 times, and as chair of this committee, I don't want to see this come back again. We should vote it tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Humphrey?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just agree with the chair. I don't want to keep dealing with this. I don't know how else to put it. It's been like pulling teeth to get, we got some small adjustments, but not the fundamentals haven't changed. There doesn't seem to be much effort to change the fundamentals here. I don't know how you necessarily even could. And I just don't understand why we're going around in circles on this. I don't know what it benefits to go back to the land use committee. If there was something that could have been fixed, then wouldn't it have already been fixed in the land use process? It seemed like the report from the, consultant reviewers got ignored when they had concerns about this. So I know I'm not on that committee, but I just don't understand what we're doing here. And this has taken up a lot of bandwidth for a long time now. Thank you.
Councillor Downs?
I would like to give this petitioner another chance to address the traffic issues. I think that's a major stumbling block on this, and perhaps they want to go before MassDOT first and come back to us with a decision on that. That would then clarify things for us. To vote it down, my fear, and I think we should all also be thinking about this, is that this place goes out of business and we have yet another empty store in Newton that's bringing in no tax revenue. And that's another thing that at least I think about in doing the whole balance of this, the pros and cons. But I would give them another chance.
So can I just add that today I called the Wellesley Police, wanting to know what the crash rate is for the Wellesley, since Councillor Humphrey told me about the backup at the Wellesley Dunkin' Donuts. And the officer who answered the phone said that he's been on the force for 9 years and there hasn't been a crash that he knows about. At that location, I did not have time, given the meeting was tonight, to go to the records people to find out if that was true. But I do think it might be worthwhile seeing what the experience from Wellesley has been. Councillor Lipoff. This is on Councillor Leary's motion. Okay. So is there anyone else that wants to speak to Councillor Leary? Councillor Kunzman, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Thank you, Madam President. As I mentioned, I am opposed to this underlying petition, but I do think it would be appropriate to give the petitioner an opportunity to cure any defects. I'm going to support sending it back to committee. If the defects can't be cured, maybe it doesn't even come out. I don't know, but I'm not going to foreclose any possibilities of resolution here. So I'll support the motion to send back to committee.
Councillor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Madam President. I just want to voice my vote to support Councillor Leary's amendment. I support the project, and she's right. I think there needs to be something done about police detail or some other solution to make that safer. Otherwise, I support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so we can vote on Councillor Leary's motion.
Councillor Baker.
No.
Councillor Bowman. Counselor Crossley?
Aye.
Counselor Danberg?
Aye.
Counselor Downs?
Aye.
Counselor Gentile? Counselor Greenberg?
Aye.
Counselor Grossman?
No.
Counselor Humphrey?
No.
Counselor Kalis?
No.
Counselor Kelly?
No.
Counselor Krinsman?
Aye.
Counselor Laredo? Counselor Leary?
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff?
No.
Counselor Lucas?
Aye.
Counselor Maliki?
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz?
Aye.
Counselor Noel?
No.
Counselor Norton?
Aye.
Counselor Oliver?
Aye.
Counselor Ryan?
No.
Counselor Wright?
Aye.
President Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries 13 yeas, 8 nays, 3 absent.
Okay, I think we've finished with this item for tonight. The last item is Counselor, let's see, this is Counselor Krinsman, 14423.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll report out fairly quickly. So this is item 144-23. This was the citizens group petition to place a non-binding advisory question on the ballot. Folks may recall this was more than 50-person petition filed that articulated a question to be put on the ballot in November, although it laid out the single question in 4 parts, which we went over. We had a public hearing. This was on Thursday, June 8th. We had, I think, close to 50 people testify, some for, some against. Ultimately, after about 3.5 hours, the committee voted no action necessary by a vote of 5 to 0 to 2. I guess I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to weigh in later if warranted.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Markowitz, you put this on second call.
I'll keep this quick and simple as I can, given the late hour. If people will just hang in with me for a second. The reason, I didn't come here expecting that we were going to overturn this vote. Okay, I think given all the facts, Nan probably was the right thing in this case, but I still have an issue with it. When I was late to that particular hearing, I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't comment anything, and maybe I should have said something at the time. I think the idea of a non-advisory ballot for this particular item is actually a good idea. I know that some of the wording in the way the petitioner put it needed work, and if it could be amended to fix that, I would probably propose that, but I don't think that can happen. I think it has to go back and come back again. So, you know, with the chair of programs and services here, I'm wondering if we can't at some point bring this back with the correct wording. You know, now this proposal is substantially formed. We heard a presentation tonight. You know, I didn't really hear a lot of like new stuff in that. This has been consistent with how this has been progressing. I think it's fairly well formed at this point. I'm sure there's going to be tweaks on maybe you know, VC1 will become VC2, VC3. Not good examples, but there may be tweaks. But this thing is fairly well formed. And I don't know that if we voted it today in the council, that our vote would mirror what we might get if we actually had this on a ballot. You know, we had the override on a ballot. I think this is more impactful than the override, to be honest with you, over the long haul. So what I'd like to see is us come back and consider putting a non-binding advisory item on the ballot. You know, this could be an election issue. We don't have a lot of competitive races this year. If we did, I would be strongly pounding the table saying we should vote on this before the election, so people, because again, it's that significant, so that, you know, the people of the city understand where the council is on this and whether or not they support not just really this zoning change, but, you know, we're not done here probably. We'll go, you know, after village centers, we'll go on to the, you know, to the neighborhoods and, you know, whatever other entity is appropriate for us to look at. So I think it's important to hear from them. I know that there have been a lot of effort made to get the word out. The mayor's newsletters, the ZAP committee has done a lot of stuff. Planning has had surveys and workshops, and there's no fault here for lack of effort. But the plain fact of the matter is, I still think a lot of people don't know this is happening, let alone really have enough understanding of the depth of what we're working on here. So that's the reason I put it on second call. Not to say that, as it was submitted, it was submittable as a ballot item, but I would like to see us put together something that could actually go out and be an advisory to the council. If we're going to vote on this after November 7th, then we'll have the opportunity to hear from them, and we can keep it, we can position it in such a way that it is fair, that it's sober, that it's not, overly, complex. But I think we can explain it, and that's why I put it on. So I hope you understand the spirit of where I'm coming from with this and what I'd like to do. And I really think we need to understand the demographic in the city on this. I'm not sure that, if the council voted it today, let's say the council voted 2/3 for this, okay, given the way it formed right now. Would we get 2/3 of the voters in support of that? And that runs to one kind of final thing that has always, as a counselor now, I'm in my last months here, but I've always wrestled with this. Are we statesmen and women, or are we representatives? Now, we're probably both, and we probably wear both hats, but I think in some cases, we have to move and consider that representative component of it and say, are we really listening to the constituents? Do we really know where they are with this stuff? And even though we have the benefit of all these meetings and probably the in-depth reading and so forth that you would expect us to do, and we do know, in a sense, maybe better at this point in time, but I don't want to leave it at that. I think this is a significant enough issue that I would like to hear from the voters on this one. However we do that, I'm proposing maybe we come back with another non-advisory. So go ahead and nan this. I'm fine with that. But what I'm really playing for here is the follow-on action to actually do something with this and see if we can't draft an item that could go on as a non-binding advisory item on the ballot. I do think, too, it will prevent possibly other issues and challenges and questions down the road as well. Okay?
So just to, I want to be sure that we all understand what we're talking about, because the law department has said that this particular docket item is not amendable. It's either pass or fails based on what it is. You're talking about beyond this docket item, some other docket item.
Sorry. This was my opportunity to really raise the issue. That's
Okay.
why I put it on second call.
Okay.
So I'm not intending to challenge the vote as much as saying I would like us to take some action going forward on this, if provided people understand that, agree with it, and then get a commitment of some kind to work it. And of course, my good friend and ward colleague, who's chair of programs and services, would actually entertain hearing this as well, because that's the other part of this. It still has to, people still have to give it the light of day. Okay, so I've learned a few things in my time, but thank you.
We have a docket item before us, and your particular item that you've raised is interesting, but it's not this docket item. So it really is off topic. And I would like everybody who responds to really try and keep it on topic. And there's plenty of time to talk about a new docket item. But for tonight, let's talk about the one we have.
And I apologize if I did something untoward here, but I really felt this was the only way I had a chance to get this out. So I couldn't sit back and not say this, okay? Because I feel very strongly about it. Good. So I thank you for, I appreciate the listening.
Thank you. Councilor Crossley.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate your position on this. I want to say why I believe the NAN vote or a denial is the appropriate action for council to state, and it may help to inform what your next step would be as well. So, first of all 4 questions are inaccurate in some way. All 4 questions that are proposed as part of this ballot request, this non-binding ballot question, are inaccurately stated in some way. I'm not going to go through them unless I'm prompted to do so. But they're either out of date or they ask the question so completely out of context that they would serve to misinform the public. It would easily could be part of a disinformation campaign. The second piece is you can't have a 4-part single ballot question. How does somebody vote on something like that? I would agree that the zoning proposal has many parts and is an integrated assembly of rules that really must be taken into consideration as a whole, which zoning and planning has been struggling to do well over 2 years with the team who was here tonight. Helping us along the way. As I said earlier, we've taken it apart, put it back together, taken it apart, put it back together to try our best to have the whole of it address the core principles or the objectives that we agreed to at the beginning we need to address, the problem we need to solve or problems we want to solve. How does a voter come in and vote on a 4-part question? You might agree with 3 things and not the 4th. You might agree with 1 thing and not 3. How do we get information from that? I would suggest that the extensive engagement process that you mentioned, which was probably the most extensive engagement process this city has ever undertaken on an issue, and the lengthiest, has served to inform us well. We've heard from people all over, people who've solicited comments. As Councillor Leary has been fond of saying, you know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We have advertised and advertised and advertised. It's a shame we don't have a city newspaper any longer that could be, that, you know, winds up on people's doorsteps. But we don't. We now have an online news source that's doing a pretty good job, and it looks like we're going to get another one, but it's not there yet. So I think there needs to be a single question, or there need to be a bunch of questions, but maybe a poll is the better way to do what you're suggesting. This is not a ballot question that I would feel is responsible for the city council to put forward. And if we do, we are able to put an advisory question forward or multiple questions, or we may be able to pool our resources and conduct a poll. But the questions have to be objective and they have to be informed by the facts in context. And I would suggest if Councillor Krinsman wants to take that up in committee, that's going to involve a lot of discussion and debate by itself to get to the point where we have a clear, objective question or set of questions.
Councillor Kreisler, you need
Yes.
more time.
I'm going to end it there, thank you, but I think the vote on this item is correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Noel.
Thank you. I'm just taking Councillor Markowitz's comments one by one, and I want to get ahead of the narrative with this zoning conversation that the current city council is not representative of the people. As someone who has run 3 times in contested elections, knocked on over 4,000 doors, have always had to fight for my seat. The one thing I am confident in is that I represent Ward 6. I've won each of my elections with significant margins, and I can tell you from the thousands of conversations I have had that Ward 6 is ready for zoning reform. So if you haven't had that experience, then maybe you feel less confident in your ability to represent your ward. But the idea that somehow we're all lame ducks, or that we don't represent the people, or we don't know the voice of the people, so we shouldn't be voting on zoning, I think is absurd. And I think it's a great way to derail our progress. I also want to add that if you look historically around any progressive policies that have benefited the general welfare, they have never been decided by referendum. And referendum tends to actually go the wrong way against equity and justice. So I would be very cautious for all the reasons Councillor Crosley mentioned around disinformation campaigns, to assume that a referendum is more representative of what the folks of Newton want than the 24 of us that are elected every 2 years. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, you had your hand up, but I don't see it now. Did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm out of town and I'm running low on battery power, so I may not be here to the end of this, but I abstained in committee and I probably will not vote on this. I'll step outside the rail because I have some sympathy with the idea of getting public input, but I do share the view that the draft before us is not accurate and needs to be clarified if it were to be used. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, President Albright. I'll try to be brief. So I spoke to Mr. Harrington earlier this morning. I had to go by his office, and he was okay with the NAN. So I will support the committee's recommendation to NAN, and I believe that's a yes vote, I presume. You also said that there is another docket item similar to what Councilor Markowitz was talking about. Isn't that what you?
No, I was saying there is not a docket item, but if Councilor Markowitz has the opportunity to do what he wants to do, but just not tonight, we can't talk about that.
Got it. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you said that there was a docket item, so I clearly misheard. But if we need a docket item, I can do it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Maliki.
Thank you. Just a couple of thoughts kind of going backwards here. Councillor Noel said referendums tend to go the wrong way. That's certainly not always the case. We've been seeing what happens in very conservative states going against their legislature to preserve abortion rights. But basically, I am, as I said in the public hearing, I'm a supporter of getting some kind of public input on this. People have been crying out for it. I recognize this ballot question, the proposed language is not exactly reflective of the status of the zoning proposal, but why is that? The target, it's a moving target, as has been said. But I find that the gist of it, especially points 1 through 3, not so much 4, which is clearly confusing, are basically the core of the proposal. I realize this is going to go down. I'm going to vote against the motion to NAN it because it might be my only chance to go on the record. I would urge all the people who don't think this language is appropriate to encourage the Chair of Programs and Services to take up a proposal if it comes in, so that we can get something that does reflect the status of the BC zoning proposal as of whatever point we need to have it ready to get on the ballot. And I would assume that is sometime in September. Thank you.
Councilor Lipoff.
There are certain things that are appropriate for ballot questions, binding or not. I could see overnight parking going to a ballot question. I have no problem with that. This is too complicated. The time that we have spent on this, it's too complicated. Representative government means that there's a group of people that spend a ton of time, so other people don't have to, digging in, learning, asking the questions, coming up with the answers, complying with state law, and you don't throw that on a ballot question to the masses that if they did their homework, it would be a huge undertaking on this one. I think it's inappropriate, and I think that the NAN was appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Markowitz, did you want to speak again?
I do, thank you.
You need to ask for more time.
Can I have 2 more minutes, please? Just in
Councilor
case.
Markowitz is asking for another 2 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, colleagues. Just a couple things. So to reiterate, I didn't disagree with the NAN for the issues that Councilor Crosley raised. However, I do think 1, 2, and 3 were fairly, close to the point. This is it would be hard to write this anyway because it is still an evolving thing. So just to kind of set that aside. I also want to clear the air on representation here. I didn't say the council doesn't represent its people. What I'm saying is it would be good to understand on this particular issue where they really are. And the point about being a statesperson versus a representative stands. There are times when the public is not well enough informed, does not know enough, does not have enough information, let me say it that way, or some way that's, non-offensive. But I think there are times we need to hear from them. This is a big deal. And I think that, there's a sense in me of saying, in spite of all the efforts that have been made here, we need to continue to make people understand what this is. In land use, when we're in land use, we often get better because we work things. And this has been worked, but I think the component that we don't necessarily have a good sense of is the broader perspective of the city at large. So that's all I mean by that, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. However we do it, I think, writing a single question that embodies 2 or 3 points is possible. I don't know exactly how to do it technically on the floor here, but I think we should look at it. And if end of day there is no way to do this other than the way we're doing it now, okay. But I don't know that we've turned over all the rocks yet, and that's all I'm asking to do here. And thanks.
Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be very brief. I'm going to associate my comments with Councilors Crossley, Noel, and Lucas in particular. I don't think it's ever a good idea to make very complex decisions via the ballot. And that goes with parking, which I would say is very complicated. And all you're putting on the ballot, you're asking people, who wants free parking all night long? I'd raise my hand too.
Councillor Ryan, and then Councillor, oh, okay. So not you, Councillor Wright? Yes, okay. Councillor Ryan?
Got to get my committee straight. So I'm going to repeat somewhat what I said at Programs and Services on this issue. And being on zoning and planning helps, but we've done so much work on zoning and planning, and when I first went on, I didn't understand it all, but I sat here tonight and said, I could answer probably 80% of the questions tonight. But I'm a person that initiated, and this is what I'm going to repeat, initiated a few ballot questions statewide. So I'm definitely not opposed to ballot questions. I think they're a great thing. And but I've seen one of my ballot questions statewide be shot down by the Attorney General at the time because the wording wasn't right. And my point is, not to keep us here all night, is that the wording on this just isn't right. It's not, it doesn't tell the whole story of what we've been doing on zoning and planning. The 4 questions are either incomplete or wrong, and I'm glad to hear Councilor Lucas talk to former state rep Attorney Harrington. And that's where I thought he was with it when we left Programs and Services that night. He's not an unreasonable person. And if it came, we'll probably see a referendum or a ballot question on this zoning eventually, probably closer to when we're done or when we make a vote. We recently had one on Northland, and if that's what it comes to, that's what it comes to. But I just want the information to be right so that we're voting on the real information and take it to the people. Fine. Thanks.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is a non-binding decision. I understand, yes, the questions aren't perfect. I think it should be out there, and again, it's non-binding. And I have mentioned to Councilor Lucas that I would work with him, and I'm roped in Councilor Baker to be part of a team, and whoever else want to come up with something that we could put up on the ballot as a non-binding question. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Norton, Counselor Wright said you had your hand up. Did you want to speak?
No, I didn't have my hand up, but I'll take the opportunity to call the question.
All right. Thank you, Counselor Norton. Is there any debate on calling the question? Okay, you can call the roll.
Counselor Baker. Counselor Baker? Oh, thank you. Counselor Bowman. Counselor Crossley.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile. Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo. Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
No.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Counselor Noel.
Aye.
Counselor Norton.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
President Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries 19 yeas, 1 nay, 4 absent.
Okay, we've completed our business. Counselor Oliver, do you have a motion for us? Yay. Thank you very much.